Sophie spotted her from triage and waved, headset dangling. "You're early," she called over the commotion. "Needed normality," Elena replied, voice thin. Sophie wheeled her chair closer. "You okay? You look like you slept in a freezer." "Didn't sleep much." Elena tried a smile. "What's new?" "Same old broken bones and bad decisions." Sophie studied her face. "You sure you're good? Because I can sneak you an energy drink and a hug. Both equally illegal on the floor." Elena's laugh sounded more like a whimper. "Hug first. Maybe caffeine later." She allowed Sophie to wrap her arms around her, the gesture grounding. "Thanks." Before Sophie could question more, a unit clerk waved them over. "Delivery for an Elena Carter." Elena blinked. "I didn't order anything." "It's flowers," the clerk said, pushing a polished wooden box onto the counter. The emblem on the lid was a single white orchid carved in relief. No card in sight. Sophie's eyebrows hit her hairline. Someone's got an admirer. Elena's throat tightened. She lifted the lid. Inside, a spray of white orchids lay nestled in silk, petals flawless, stems wrapped in silver ribbon. Their scent was light, almost powdery. "No card?" Sophie asked, shuffling tissue aside. The clerk shook her head. "Delivery guy said the recipient would know who sent them." Sophie hooted. "Mystery man spill." Elena snapped the lid shut. "Probably a mistake." She pushed the box back. "Send it to the volunteer desk. They'll appreciate them." Sophie frowned. "Elena, I can't accept them. I don't even like orchids." She forced a chuckle that sounded brittle. "I'm allergic." Sophie looked unconvinced but didn't press as a stretcher rolled in behind them. Elena grabbed gloves and snapped into action, grateful for the distraction. Yet as she sutured a teenager's arm, she caught herself glancing toward the entrance, half expecting Dante Marino to stride through. 2 hours later, she took a chart to radiology, passing a maintenance worker polishing a security camera above the elevator. He gave a curt nod, eyes sweeping the corridor like a guard. Elena's skin prickled. Even inside the hospital, she wasn't free of his reach. Her lunch break arrived without warning. She sat in the staff lounge, staring at a cup of tomato soup that had cooled to an unappetizing skin. Sophie joined her with a Greek yogurt and an inquisitive tilt of her head. "So orchids." "Drop it," Elena whispered, pushing the soup away. "Ellie, you're shaking. Did something happen?" "I'm just tired." "That's not tired, that's terrified." Elena opened her mouth, but the door banged and Dr. Wallace stuck his head in, demanding a nurse for a combative psych patient. Sophie muttered a curse, squeezed Elena's arm, and hurried out. Elena closed her eyes, palms pressed to her temples. She inhaled the scent of orchid still clinging to her scrubs like a ghost. When her shift finally ended, dusk painted the garage in long bruised shadows. Elena walked with her keys clutched between her fingers, heartbeat drumming in her ears. She scanned every corner. No sedan. Relief fluttered, until she spotted a tall figure leaning against the driver's side of her Honda. A black coat draped his frame, sleeves tailored to broad shoulders. Dark hair brushed his collar. His hands rested casually in pockets, yet everything about his stance radiated authority, like a lion pretending not to hunt. He looked up when she approached. Gray eyes locked on hers with unsettling calm, and Elena knew, without introduction, that she was meeting Dante Marino in the flesh. Elena stopped a cautious 3 paces from her Honda, every instinct yelling at her to turn and run. Dante Marino pushed away from the car with languid ease, as if he'd merely been admiring the sunset through the concrete lattice of the garage. Up close, his height stole the breath from her chest. He stood at least half a head taller, shoulders filling the narrow lane so completely she wondered how she'd ever squeeze past him. The overhead flood lamp carved shadows in the sharp lines of his face. High cheekbones, strong jaw, lips set in a quiet, unreadable curve. Those steel gray eyes never left hers. "Miss Carter," he said, voice smooth enough to skim across the tense air yet carrying an unmistakable edge. I'm pleased to finally meet you. She swallowed, tasting copper at the back of her throat. You're blocking my car. He glanced over his shoulder as though surprised by its existence, then stepped aside with a slight bow. Forgive me. Elena slipped the keys from her pocket. Her hands weren't steady, and the jangle betrayed her nerves. She gripped them harder. How do you know my name? Your name is the easiest detail I know. He spoke softly, a gentle lilt that didn't match the violence his reputation promised. I owe you a debt, Elena. You gave my brother a chance to breathe. He's alive because of you. She stared at him, heartbeat ricocheting. It's my job. It was more than that, he said, tone still mild but weighty. You found him in an alley where no one else would have stopped. You held his life in your hands and chose to save it. I will not forget. Cold air brushed the damp nape of her neck. She darted a look toward the ramp. The sedan she'd seen earlier had repositioned itself near the exit, driver's face hidden. Her mouth went dry. Is that why someone's been tailing me, because you won't forget? A slow nod. You're under my protection. I didn't ask for protection. The keys cut into her palm. I didn't ask for any of this. No, he agreed. But you stepped into my family's war the second you pressed your scarf to Luca's wounds. His gaze lowered briefly, as if picturing the fabric. The men who hurt him won't hesitate to hurt you if they suspect your importance. I can't allow that. She forced a steady breath. I'm a nurse, nobody important. If they come near me, I'll call the police. A flicker of something, amusement, pity, touched his eyes. The police won't keep the Roncados from finishing what they started. They answer to money, not badges, and they have plenty. He shifted, hands still in pockets, posture unthreatening yet unmistakably dominant. I can keep them away. Elena shook her head. You're part of the same violence. I am the violence, he corrected, not with pride but with matter-of-fact certainty. And that's why my promise holds weight. She flinched. The honesty chilled her more than a lie would have. I don't want your promise. I want my life back. He looked at her car, at the stethoscope peeking from her tote, at the tremor in her jaw. You think your life is still the same? It isn't. I'm only warning you so you don't mistake independence for safety. She bristled. Is that a threat? A fact. He took a small step forward. She instinctively backed into the driver's side door. His scent, cypress, rain, something darker, brushed her senses. He lowered his voice. I won't force your gratitude. You can hate me, fear me, curse me, but you will accept my protection. Or what? Or you'll find out what happens when someone else decides you're useful leverage. His gaze drifted to the bruise-colored sky outside the garage, then back. Believe me, I would prefer not to show you how cruel this city can be. For a desperate second she considered getting in the car, locking the doors and speeding away. But a memory flashed. The silent sedan following, the envelope on her kitchen table. Running wouldn't end it. It might make things worse. She lifted her chin. If you truly want to keep me safe, remove the men outside my building. Stop the gifts. Stop the notes. Let me live quietly. Quiet doesn't suit you, he said, surprising her. You save strangers in dark alleys. That's not a quiet life. It's brave, reckless, luminous. His expression shifted, something like admiration, flickering. Luminous things attract darkness. My presence is inevitable now. The question is whether I'm standing between you and the dark, or adding to it. The word sent an unwanted shiver across her shoulders. She exhaled slowly. You claim you owe me. Fine. Consider the debt paid if you leave me alone. He smiled then, the smallest curve of lips that might have been gentle, if not for its sadness. Debts are settled in coin or blood, Elena. Protection is neither. It's a decision. Mine. She pressed her fingers to her aching temple. I can't do this. Not tonight. He stepped back immediately, giving her space. Then I won't keep you. He reached into his coat and produced a slim phone. But take the number you were given seriously. I answer it at any hour. She didn't reach for it. He set the device on her hood, screen dark and straightened. When you get home, he said quietly, lock your door, draw your curtains, and pretend you can't feel eyes on you. If anything frightens you, call. If you simply need the silence broken, call. He paused, voice dropping almost to a whisper. If you wish I'd never walked into your life, blame the part of you that couldn't leave my brother lying in the street. Her eyes stung with unexpected tears. She blinked them away, furious at herself. You're manipulating me. Truth looks like manipulation when you don't like how it feels. He glanced toward the exit where his driver waited. I meant what I wrote. You're not alone. She managed to unlock the car. As she slid behind the wheel, he closed the door for her. Careful, controlled, as though she were made of glass. She turned the key, engine sputtering to life. Dante stepped back, hands once more in pockets, eyes unflinching. She pulled away without looking, but the rearview mirror captured him, solitary under the fluorescence, black coat stirring in garage draft. He didn't follow, at least not visibly. She gripped the wheel until her knuckles blanched, willing her heartbeat to slow. Halfway home, she realized her phone, the one he'd left, was rattling unnervingly across the dashboard. She almost tossed it out the window. Instead, she shoved it into the glove box, snapping the latch hard. The black sedan reappeared a block from Riverside, pacing her like a shadow. She parked in haste and sprinted to her building entrance before the sedan even rolled to a stop. Upstairs, she locked the door, chain and deadbolt, then flattened her back against it, breathing ragged. The walls felt thinner than paper. The adrenaline crash left her trembling. She paced the living room, counting heartbeats, fighting the urge to call Sophie. She didn't want her friend caught in a crossfire she barely understood. Finally, she grabbed the landline receiver, safer than the phone Dante planted, she reasoned, and dialed her mother's number, finger hovering over the last digit. What would she say? Hi, Mom. I saved a Mafia prince and now the king wants to protect me? She hung up, tears burning behind her eyelids. The apartment was too quiet. She switched on the TV for noise. A sitcom laugh track clashed with the pounding in her head. She muted it, stared at the scrolling captions she couldn't focus on, then rose and fetched the glovebox phone. The weight of it in her palm was obscene. She pressed power. The screen pulsed alive, wallpaper already set to a minimalist black field. Only one contact sat in favorites. D. She stared at the single letter, thumb hovering over call. She imagined him in whatever fortress he ruled, waiting, certain she would cave to fear. No. She powered the phone off again, tossed it on the couch, and retreated to the bathroom to splash water on her face. Her reflection looked alien, pupils dilated, cheeks flushed, lips parted like she'd run a marathon. When she stepped back into the living room, the phone lay where she left it. But the envelope on her table had moved, slid an inch as though nudged by an invisible hand. She froze. A draft from the window? Or paranoia? She checked the lock. Secure. She blamed exhaustion and lifted the envelope, weighing it as if it could explain itself. Then she put it in the freezer. Irrational, but it felt safer sealed in ice. She made a sandwich she barely tasted and retreated to the bedroom. She pulled a dresser in front of the door, wedged a chair under the knob, then curled on top of the comforter wearing sweatpants and sneakers. The bedside clock blinked past midnight. She counted the minutes between car engines on the street, listening for footsteps in the hall. When sleep finally came, it was brittle and shallow, full of gray eyes and crimson alleys. Dante watched the lamp flicker behind Elena's third-floor blinds from the passenger seat of the sedan. Matteo sat behind the wheel, silent, gaze scanning mirrors. You said you'd give her space, Matteo murmured. I am, Dante replied. Some people's definition of space is a little wider than a city block. Dante smiled without humor. She will sleep tonight, she deserves that much. Matteo drummed fingers on the steering wheel. The men who shot Luca? They've heard rumors about the nurse. They're asking questions around hospitals. I know. Dante's tone darkened. Anyone who tries to reach her, remove them quietly. Bodies in the river stir cops. We'll use silence. I'll send word. Good. Dante leaned against the headrest, watching the faint shadow of Elena's figure drift across her bedroom window. Tell me you've set interior cams in the building, he said softly. The unit across from her is vacant. Tex wired a pinhole lens through the radiator grill. We'll see anyone in the hallway, anyone approaching her door. Excellent. A breath almost like a sigh escaped him. She asked me to leave her alone. You've never listened to polite requests. This one matters. He tapped the glass with a knuckle. She matters. Matteo ventured, you barely know her. I know enough. His voice dropped to a private confession. I owe her my brother. That is knowing her. Silence settled, broken only by a distant siren wailing across the river. Dante's phone buzzed, an encrypted message. He read it, jaw flexing. Roncado's lieutenant spotted our men at Memorial. They suspect the nurse works nights. Matteo cursed. We can pull them back. No. We tighten the circle. Dante pocketed the phone, gray eyes fixed on Elena's window. Before this ends, she'll hate me for bringing darkness to her doorstep. But she'll live to hate me, Matteo. That's what counts. A bedside lamp clicked off upstairs, Dante signaled. The sedan eased away from the curb, disappearing into the quiet street while another, smaller car slid into place. Lights dark, engine purring. Guard shifts changed seamlessly, the night swallowing evidence of his obsession until only the faint hum of an idling engine proved any king watched over an angel at all. Morning arrived gray and heavy, smearing the city skyline behind a curtain of drizzle. Elena discovered she'd slept only 3 hours by the time her alarm trilled. Every joint ached. Her heart still beat an anxious tattoo, but something in her gut refused to surrender to fear. She showered, brewed strong coffee, and decided she wouldn't cancel her weekly grocery run. Normal routines were her rebellion. The rain had stopped by the time she reached the market lot. She parked, scanned rows of cars, and spotted no black sedans. Relief felt traitorous. Had she begun to rely on Dante's watchers? She grabbed reusable bags and hurried inside. Fluorescent lights and produce misters brought a fragile calm. She selected apples, bread, a carton of almond milk. At the coffee aisle, her phone rang. Unknown number. Her thumb hovered before she answered. Miss Carter, Detective Walsh, Metro Homicide. Her stomach dropped. I'm at the store. Is this urgent? I won't keep you. We're investigating the warehouse shooting. Witnesses saw a woman matching your description render aid. I'd like to take a statement. Elena stared at rows of beans. I already spoke to paramedics. The EMT's report was brief. A full statement helps us build a timeline. She hesitated. A cart squeaked past, the shopper oblivious. Can we schedule something next week? I'm on double shifts. Of course, I'll text my card, call when you're available. Thank you. She hung up, pulse spiking anew. If she talked, she'd be dragged deeper. If she didn't, she risked obstruction. She pushed the cart toward checkout, mind churning. A figure turned down her aisle, a stocky man in a navy windbreaker, ball cap shadowing his eyes. He slowed when their gazes met. Something in his posture set her nerves twitching, shoulders too stiff, expression blank. She looked away, heart thudding, and forced herself to keep walking. At self-checkout, she scanned items quickly, glancing over her shoulder. Capman lurked near the magazine rack, pretending to read headlines. When she left, he followed a few paces behind. Panic nipped her heels. She headed straight for the service desk. Excuse me, could someone walk me to my car? Her voice trembled despite her effort at calm. I think I'm being followed. The clerk's eyes widened and waved to an assistant manager who radioed store security. A tall guard in a raincoat appeared. Capman melted into another aisle. The guard escorted Elena to the lot, scanning parked vehicles. No sign of the follower. Probably just coincidence, the guard said, loading her bags into the Civic. But smart to ask. Thanks, she murmured, slipping into the driver's seat. She locked the doors and pulled out. In the rear view, she spied Capman leaving the store, scanning for her. He spoke into a phone. Frustrated. A fresh bolt of fear jolted her foot on the accelerator. Rain began again, heavy drops drumming the windshield as she merged onto River Parkway. Traffic crawled. She kept checking mirrors. Half a mile from her exit, a black SUV slipped behind her bumper, headlights glaring. Not Dante's sedan. Plates were out of state. Her pulse spiked. She switched lanes. The SUV mirrored. She switched again. So did it. Ahead, a yellow light turned red. She braked hard. The SUV edged so close she felt its heat. Time slowed. Instinct roared, move. She slammed the accelerator, veered right, tires shrieking. The SUV shot forward too late, stuck behind a delivery truck. Elena careened onto a side street, heart hammering. She didn't slow until she reached a crowded cafe lot. Parking crooked, she shut off the engine and fumbled for the glove box phone. Her thumb hovered over the single contact. She remembered Dante's warning. Luminous things attract darkness. The SUV could be coincidence, or it could be the Roncatos. Fear for Sophie, her patience, her mother outweighed resentment. She tapped call. One ring. Elena. His voice, low and steady, wrapped around her like a safety belt. I'm being tailed, she blurted. Black SUV, tinted windows, no plates on front. They nearly forced me off River Parkway. Where are you? Bella Vita Cafe, Jefferson and 8th. They lost me in traffic. Stay inside the car. My people are 3 minutes out. She spotted no one. How? Trust me. His tone left no room for debate. Lock the doors. She obeyed and watched drizzle paint the windshield. 3 minutes stretched into eternity before a charcoal coupe slid into the adjoining space. The driver's window lowered. Matteo Marino looked out, rain beating on his lashes. Come with me, he said. Your groceries will be delivered later. Elena hesitated. Her phone buzzed. Dante was still on the line. It's safe, he murmured. She grabbed her purse, left the keys, and climbed into Matteo's car. The cabin smelled of leather and ozone. He accelerated smoothly into traffic. Where are we going? Somewhere secure, just until my boss confirms the tale's origin. She pressed palms to her thighs to stop shaking. That SUV, was it the Roncatos? Most likely, they're sloppy when they're rushed. You were already following me. We follow everyone important to Dante, he corrected gently. Not to control. Only to shield. The city blurred past. 10 minutes later, the coupe descended into a private underground garage beneath a glass office tower. 2 guards opened a steel door leading to a pristine lobby with muted lighting and abstract art. Matteo guided her into an elevator, scanned a keycard, and pressed 28. Elena, you're safe here, he said as they rose. No one gets into this building without clearance. Am I a prisoner? Only if you consider a locked front door imprisonment. The elevator opened into a loft draped in warm wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. Rain-streaked glass like silver threads. A fireplace flickered, casting amber light over minimalist furniture. This isn't your boss's place, she asked. Dante prefers older architecture. This is a safe apartment maintained for emergencies. Matteo motioned to a sofa. Make yourself comfortable. She remained standing. I need to call my friend. She'll worry when I'm late for shift. You can use the landline. No cell signals traceable in here. Elena dialed Sophie, offered a rushed explanation about car trouble. Sophie teased her about jalopies and promised to cover until she arrived. Guilt pricked. She hung up and turned to Matteo. Why help me, besides orders? Because Luca's my closest friend. He smiled faintly. And because I respect anyone who still tries to save strangers. Heat flushed her cheeks. Before she could respond, the elevator chimed. Dante stepped out, rain darkening the shoulders of his coat, hair damp. His eyes swept the room, landing on her with singular focus. "You're unhurt?" he asked. She nodded, suddenly conscious of her soggy sneakers on polished hardwood. "I followed your directions." "Good." He shed the coat, draping it over a chair. Matteo slipped out, doors closing behind him. Raindrops slid down the window pane. Dante poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal carafe, handed one to her. She sipped, surprised at the steadiness in her hand now that he was near. "I'm sorry," he said after a moment. The admission startled her. "I underestimated how quickly the Roncatos would act. I thought warning their street crews off my territory would be enough." He exhaled, gaze fierce. "It won't happen again." She set the glass on a side table. "What if my presence hurts your brother's recovery?" she asked, voice low. "What if they use me as leverage?" His expression softened in a way that frightened her more than his hardness. "You worry about Luca. You blame me for stepping into your world, but you and your enemies pulled me in. I don't want war." "Neither do I." He approached slowly, as though skittish wildlife might bolt. "I want control. Peace by force, if necessary. And I want you to live the life you deserve." Her laugh came sharp and brittle. "I can't do that with armed shadows following me." "Then stay somewhere safer, here or another property of mine." "You want me hidden." She folded arms across her chest. "Caged. Sheltered," he corrected. "Until the threat passes." "How long is that?" He didn't answer. Rain ticked against glass like a clock, marking silence between them. "I know how this looks," and he said finally. "But my vow remains. No harm will touch you. If you walk out now, that vow stands. I'd rather you accept safety willingly." Her heart fluttered with a confused mix of anger, gratitude, and something more dangerous. She turned to the windows. The city lights blurred beyond the veil of rain. "I need to think. Take tonight. Matteo will drive you home in the morning or wherever you choose. If you decide to stay longer, rooms are prepared." She faced him again. "Why go to such lengths because I'm some angel in your brother's delirium?" A faint smile curved his mouth. "You're not an angel, Elena. Angels are distant, untouchable. You're terribly human, and that makes you real. That makes everything worth protecting." She didn't know how to answer. Her pulse thudded in her ears, her breath catching. A part of her wanted to believe him. Another wanted to scream. Instead, she said, "I need to call my mother. She expects Sunday lunch." He nodded. "Landline is secure. Use any room." She turned, but his voice stopped her. "Elena?" "Yes?" "Thank you for trusting me enough to call." She hesitated. "I trusted no one. I panicked." "Panic guided you to me. I'll take that." His smile was fleeting, but it warmed something hollow in her chest. She left him standing by the window, rainlight skimming his features like a dark statue come to life. In the hallway, she found a guest room with a plush armchair. She sank into it, phone in hand, world spinning. Outside, the storm intensified, thunder rolling through steel and glass. She dialed her mother, voice steady as she invented a story about staying with a friend due to flooding downtown. Her mother fussed, offered to drive over. Elena reassured her until guilt threatened to choke her. When she ended the call, she stayed in the dimly lit room, breathing slow, letting the storm's rumble ground her. Her life had tilted off its axis, but for a moment the chaos paused, suspended in the hush between lightning and thunder. She closed her eyes, not sure whether sleep or tears would come first. Dante watched the closed door long after she disappeared, hands clasped behind his back. Matteo returned, silent. "Well?" Matteo asked. "She'll stay the night." "And tomorrow?" "That's up to her." Dante's voice carried both determination and doubt. But if the Roncatos want leverage, they'll have to search 1,000 doors before they find the one she chooses. Matteo glanced at the rain-smeared skyline. War is coming, boss. It's already here. Dante's gaze drifted to the guest room hallway. The difference now is I finally have something worth fighting clean for. The rain eased toward dawn, leaving the city streets rinsed and gleaming under sodium lamps. 2 miles from Dante's riverside tower, the back room of a shuttered billiards bar hummed with low conversation. Sticky bar tops and flickering neon once defined the place. Now the scent of mold mingled with gun oil and cigarette smoke. 3 men gathered around a round table scarred by knife gouges, Roncato soldiers in street clothes. Gianni, the ranking lieutenant, crushed the last ember of his cigarette into an empty glass. His dark hair was slicked against his skull, rainwater still dripping from the brim of his jacket. 2 subordinates leaned forward, waiting. "Good intel?" one asked. "Better be," Gianni said, flicking ash from his fingers. "Word is, Marino's kid brother survived, thanks to a girl." "A nurse," the younger soldier muttered. "Ordinary civilian." Gianni's lip curled. "Funny thing about civilians, they bleed like anybody else, but they make Marino bleed harder. The minute he guards someone, that someone becomes a fine lever." He reached inside his coat and slid a grainy security photo onto the table. Elena in sky blue scrubs, yawning at a vending machine, unaware of the camera. Memorial Hospital. Night shift. Name still unknown, but we've got a face. The younger soldier whistled. "Marino's getting sloppy." "No." Gianni's tone sharpened. "He's getting sentimental. And that's when men like him break." He tapped the photograph. "Find her schedule, find her address. We take her quick. No showboating. A nurse in a white coat won't scream loud if you aim a gun at her patients first." "What about Marino's surveillance?" the second subordinate asked. "We use her shift change. Hospital garages are labyrinths. Mask up, no bodies in and out." Gianni pocketed the photo. "Tonight we start. By tomorrow, my boss will have Marino on his knees." A knock echoed at the rear entrance, 2 short, 1 long. Gianni tensed, gun halfway drawn before a courier slipped through a slit of light, panting from the rain. "Delivery from Mr. Gianni," the boy said, thrusting a small envelope forward, then bolting. Gianni frowned, ripped it open. A single playing card slid out. The Queen of Hearts, edges flecked with fresh blood. Gianni's face drained. He flipped the card. Black ink scrawled across the back. "Touch her and die." No signature, just a stamped crest of an orchid. Gianni's hand tightened until the card crumpled. Rage burned behind his eyes, but fear rooted his feet. He crammed the card into his jacket with a growl. "Move fast," he snapped at his men, "before he's finished writing love notes." They fled into the dripping alley, engines spluttering awake a street away. 28 stories above the river, the loft remained quiet except for the hush of HVAC vents and muted city traffic. Elena woke near noon, disoriented by unfamiliar silk sheets and the warm weight of a plush duvet. Gray daylight filtered through shears, painting the room soft silver. For an instant, she imagined everything. Allie, flowers, Dante, had been a fever dream. Then she noticed the crease of a suit jacket draped over a nearby chair, its pocket square a crisp slash of white. She breathed in, steadying the quake in her chest, and rose. A note lay on the bedside table in neat ink. "Kitchen. Coffee ready. When you're comfortable, join me. D." Her first impulse was to bolt, second to distrust the coffee, third to realize hunger gnawed her stomach. She dressed in the same jeans and knit top someone, Matteo, she guessed, must have retrieved from her car, then padded barefoot down a sunlit hallway. The loft opened into an elegant kitchen where Dante stood at the stove pouring batter onto a skillet. The domestic tableau might have seemed absurd if not for the shirt sleeves rolled over powerful forearms and the sidearm holstered at his hip. He glanced up. "You slept." "Apparently." She hovered near the marble island, unsure what to do with her hands. Pancakes, he offered. She blinked. You cook? Badly. But Matteo swore I couldn't ruin pancakes. A faint smile teased his features. He may regret that faith. She couldn't stop a faint laugh. The sound startled both of them. Dante flipped a lumpy circle that seared unevenly. Proof, he said, unfazed by imperfection. She accepted a mug he poured, inhaled rich Colombian aroma. Was there any news? He sobered. My men located the SUV. Roncado plate swap. The driver vanished before contact. They know roughly who you are, but not your name. They will soon. He slid the pancakes onto a plate, added honey. Which is why I'd like you to stay here until this complication resolves. Safe house forever? She placed the mug down harder than intended. I can't abandon my life. I'm asking for days, not forever. And if I say no? His pause felt like a door closing somewhere far away. I'll still shield you. It'll be messier, but my commitment doesn't change. Elena's shoulders sagged. Why won't you let the police handle it? Because the police would start a turf war they can't survive. The Roncados own half the precincts. They want leverage, not attention. They'll keep hunting quietly. And you'll hunt louder? He shrugged. I'm fluent in violence, but I prefer precision. He pushed the plate toward her. Eat, then decide. She sat, appetite grudging. The first bite was more edible than expected. Matteo was right, not ruined. His eyes warmed. I'll relay the compliment. He poured himself coffee, leaning against the counter. Luca keeps asking when he can thank you himself. When you're ready, we'll arrange a visit. No pressure. Her fork paused mid-air. How is he? Recovering, bored. The surgeon says stubbornness is his best medicine. Dante's lips curved. It runs in the family. She studied him. The softened jawline when he spoke of Luca. The subtle tension whenever he mentioned threat. Under the chilling reputation, there was a brother whose heart had fractured at the sight of family, lying in blood. She set her fork down, appetite fading beneath a swell of empathy she hadn't granted herself permission to feel. I'll stay tonight, she said softly. One night, then I need to go home, collect things, talk to my supervisor about leave. Relief flickered in his eyes, quickly masked. Whatever you need, we'll arrange. On one condition. She held his gaze. No shadows inside my mother's neighborhood. She worries easily. He considered, then nodded. Agreed. She finished breakfast under his watchful silence. When she stood to rinse her plate, he stepped forward, fingers grazing the porcelain. Their hands brushed. Electricity zipped up her arm, startling in its warmth. She pulled back, nearly dropping the dish. Oh, sorry, he murmured. She washed the plate quickly, heart racing. Early evening fell violet across the glass towers when Matteo escorted Elena to a guest study stocked with books. She tried to read but dozed in the armchair, waking to hushed voices in the living room. She followed the sound, finding Dante on a call. Move 2 teams to Memorial now, he said. Gianni Roncado wants leverage. He'll strike at shift change. A pause, he listened, jaw tightening, then offered Gianni a trade. 10 grand for every hour he stays away from the nurse's ward. Deliver it with a deck of cards, minus the Queen of Hearts. Silence. Because that is mine, and he knows it. Elena's breath caught. Dante's gaze flicked over, sensing her presence. He ended the call and approached. I didn't mean to wake you. I wasn't asleep. She wrapped her arms around herself. You bribed him to stay away? Money buys time, fear buys distance. I'm using both. And the card? Message received, he said simply. She shivered despite the gentle warmth of the loft. He stepped closer but kept a respectful gap. If you need anything, more clothes, books, Matteo will acquire them. At what cost, she whispered, and less than your life. He reached out slow, as one might calm a wild creature. and brushed a stray strand of hair behind her ear. The touch barely registered, yet her pulse trip-hammered. "Sleep in peace tonight. Tomorrow we plan the rest." She didn't trust her voice, so she nodded and retreated down the hall. Hours later, well past midnight, Dante stood alone on the balcony, city lights glinting like distant embers. Rain had given way to a hazy moon that traced silver along the river. Matteo stepped out, file in hand. "Johnny mobilized a 3-man unit near Memorial," Matteo reported. "We intercepted, paid them to walk away, delivered your message." "And?" "Gianni burned the money in front of our courier. He's insulted." "Good." Dante's mouth curved with grim satisfaction. Insulted men make reckless choices. He glanced at the dark windows behind him where Elena slept. "He'll reach for her soon, and when he does, I'll break him." Matteo hesitated. "Boss, you're drawing more than bullets. People are talking. Allies wonder why one nurse merits this devotion." "Let them wonder." Dante's gaze lingered on Elena's window. "She doesn't belong in my world," he murmured, more to himself than Matteo, "but that's exactly why I need her in it." He turned, the river wind catching his coat. "Contact every informant. If the Roncatos breathe in her direction again, I want to know before they exhale." Matteo nodded, disappearing inside. Dante remained, welded to the night, until the first blush of dawn cooled the city's fire. Only then did he step back into the dim loft, closing the balcony doors with quiet certainty, like sealing a promise none would breach. Elena surfaced from sleep slowly as if she'd been buried beneath warm sand. For a moment she couldn't place the taste of the linens, or the silence that wrapped the room like padded walls. Then memory sharpened. The safe apartment? Rain-dim windows. Dante's unwavering promise that she would be safe here. She lay still, listening. No pipes clanged. No neighbors coughed through the thin walls of her old building. Only the faint whir of climate control and the occasional soft tick from the oversized clock in the hall. The hush felt decadent and wrong, the quiet of a museum at night. She slid from the bed and padded across thick carpet to the balcony doors. Dawn glimmered over the river, pink and pale gold swathing the towers in gentler shapes. For an absurd second, she wondered if she could hide in the sunrise, fold herself into its colors and escape. Then, a reflection moved in the glass. Matteo, apparently checking the corridor outside. Even here, she was never alone. She frowned, stepped back, and tugged on jeans and a soft sweatshirt that someone had folded on an ottoman. Small kindnesses were everywhere in this place, and each one unsettled her more than outright hostility might have. Coffee aromas drifted down the hallway, muted but inviting. She followed them, passing rooms she hadn't seen before. An in-home gym, a sleek library that looked as though it had never hosted a single dog-eared paperback. When she reached the kitchen, she found no one. A mug waited on the island, steam curling upward. A folded note sat beside it. "Drink. You barely did yesterday. D." She stared at the handwriting, steady, assertive, and ignored the heat blooming in her chest. She took the mug and wandered, letting anger outrun gratitude. If she was going to be caged, she would know every bar. She crossed to a door she'd assumed was a closet. It opened onto a short passage lit by a single recessed bulb. At the far end, another door sat flush with the wall, sealed with a biometric pad. She pressed her fingertips against the smooth surface on instinct. The lock beeped green and slid open. Her stomach dropped. He'd already authorized her fingerprints. She stepped inside. A soft hum greeted her, like the breathing of some giant machine. Monitors lined the walls, each showing a silent feed. The first displayed the lobby of her apartment building. The next, the nurse's station at Memorial. Another showed the street outside Sophie's house. Elena recognized the little lemon tree in a pot by the front steps. On the largest screen, A still image looped from last night. Gianni Roncato, glancing over his shoulder in the rain, Queen of Hearts in his hand. The mug rattled against its saucer. Every feed betrayed how thoroughly her life had been invaded, every angle pierced by lenses she'd never seen. Behind her, a voice spoke, quiet, almost apologetic. It feels invasive because it is. She spun. Matteo stood just inside the doorway, hands clasped behind his back, gray eyes unreadable. "This is why we keep you off certain floors," he added. "You're spying on my friends," she whispered, fury and shame colliding so hard her pulse throbbed in her temples. "We're guarding them. If Gianni can't reach you, he'll strike Sophie or your mother instead." Matteo gestured to a feed showing Mrs. Chen's hallway back at Riverside. Nothing moved, but Elena felt suddenly responsible for every neighbor on the screen. It's precaution, not amusement. Does Dante watch these all day, every day? Matteo's jaw tightened. He checks what matters, and you matter. That's not a comfort, then it's the truth. He stepped aside, allowing a fuller view of the room. Rows of labeled drives, a neat logbook, coffee stains on one blotter where an operator must have worked overnight. You saved Luca without hesitation. Dante will do more than hesitate before letting harm find you. He already has. She swept an arm toward the screens. This is harm. Matteo's gaze softened a fraction, the cold veneer cracking. You think of cages as things with bars. Dante's cage is visibility. If he can see you, he can control risk. He paused. And yes, perhaps more than risk. Elena hugged herself, coffee growing cold in her hand. So what now? I'm supposed to thank him? You're supposed to decide whether protection is worth the cost. Matteo's voice gentled. For what it's worth, if I were in your shoes, I'd resent it too. But I'd also choose living to resent it. A bitter laugh slipped out. I never asked for philosophy. Philosophy comes free with the coffee. He nodded toward the exit. Dante's on the terrace. If you want answers, he'll give them. Maybe not the ones you like, but they'll be honest. She brushed past him, pulse hammering. The corridor opened into a sunlit gallery. At the far end, glass doors revealed Dante standing shirt-sleeved, leaning on the railing as traffic crawled below. Morning wind lifted a stray lock of his hair, but he didn't react. He looked carved from the same steel that girded the skyline. Elena's feet carried her forward before her brain agreed. She stopped a yard away, the door still between them, and raised a fist. He must have sensed her. He glanced over, eyes shadowed, and slid the door open. You found the surveillance room, he said, voice rough from disuse. She stepped onto the terrace, breeze teasing her sweatshirt. You gave me access with my fingerprints. Did you expect gratitude? No. Clarity. He motioned to a chair, but she remained standing. The early light etched precise planes along his cheekbones, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. You hate me for watching, but if I hadn't, last night Gianni would have walked right through your front door. I can't live on screens, she shot back. Every part of my life is somewhere in that room. My mother, my best friend. Privacy doesn't exist to you. He bowed his head, fingertips tapping the rail. I have no privacy. I forget people still need it. Convenient excuse. No. Ugly truth. He met her eyes. You think I'm building a cage? Maybe. But cages can be dismantled. Graves cannot. The words sliced deep. She tightened her grip on the mug, heat no longer warming her palms. You stole my choice. I saved your life, he corrected. My methods. Your methods terrify me. His shoulders drew tight before loosening on a slow exhale. Then teach me different ones. The statement startled her. You're asking me to change you? I'm asking for patience. He stepped closer, voice dropping. I can't rewrite my past, but I can learn how not to write yours in blood. She swallowed, tremor rippling through her frame. The closeness of him, cologne mixed with morning air, warmth radiating from his skin, pulled at something low in her belly. She hated how her pulse misread danger as attraction. "Let me leave," she whispered. "Prove you're better by letting me go." He searched her face, expression quiet agony. "If I let you go, I hand you to wolves." "You're the wolf." "Yes," he admitted, "but I know which throats to tear." His hand lifted as if to touch her shoulder, but he stopped. "If that makes me a monster, at least I'm your monster." Her breath hitched. Tears, furious and confused, welled in her eyes. She turned away so he wouldn't see them shine. Below, the street clatter rose. Horns, diesel engines, the distant wail of an ambulance. Life continued down there, messy and indifferent. Up here, she was pinned between sky and steel, breathing rarefied air that wasn't hers to inhale. "Matteo said I need to choose," she said softly. "Stay in your line of sight, or risk everything outside it." "You've already chosen once," Dante murmured. "You chose a bleeding man in an alley. This time, choose yourself." She faced him. "And if I choose to go?" "I'll still guard you," he said, voice steady though his eyes brimmed with something raw. "From farther away, and with more blood on my hands because distance widens the target. But yes, I will guard you." The truth of that washed over her, unyielding, heavy as the river below. She set the mug on the low table, its clink far too loud in the hush between them. "I need time." "Take it. But the cameras—" "I'll power down any feed you name, except the one I keep on those who want you dead." She almost smiled at the absurdity. "I suppose that's compromise." "It's a start." He stepped back, granting space. "Breakfast is ready when you want it. Matteo can take you to get clothes, personal things. No shadows, only him." She nodded, suddenly exhausted. As she passed him to re-enter the apartment, she paused. "Thank you for the coffee." The gentlest curve touched his lips. "It's a pleasure to give you ordinary things." She fled before her traitorous heart could answer. Matteo found Elena in the kitchen an hour later, rinsing her half-eaten omelet down the disposal. Sunlight spilled across marble counters, but her thoughts stayed shadowed. He held out a set of sleek key cards with silent courtesy. "I'll drive you to collect clothes and essentials," he said. "No security detail beyond me, per Dante's order." She wiped her hands on a towel. "And the cameras?" "Feeds around your building are still hot, but interior lenses are off. You have his word." His tone suggested Dante's word was harder than iron. Elena pocketed the key cards. "Then let's go before I lose my nerve." The elevator ride down 28 floors felt longer than her entire first shift as a nurse. Matteo said little, though he tapped something on his phone. Possibly route changes. Possibly quiet warnings to shadows she'd never see. They exited through a service garage where a graphite sedan idled. No tinted convoy this time. Just a single car. It felt like commitment and threat combined. Traffic was light. Matteo drove like a man accustomed to chase scenarios. Smooth acceleration, eyes sweeping mirrors. Elena stared out the window at people hustling along sidewalks, a mother juggling a toddler and groceries, a cyclist weaving past a double-parked van. Ordinary lives. She ached to step back into that anonymity. "Does Dante always cook breakfast?" she asked, surprising herself with curiosity. Matteo's mouth twitched. "Only when he hasn't slept enough to taste what he's burning." "He told me he wants to learn different methods," she murmured, unsure why she shared it. "He wants many things he's never had," Matteo said, soft enough she almost missed it. Most of all, quiet. The statement hung between them until Riverside Apartments came into view. The building looked smaller, almost fragile. She unlocked the third-floor unit. Matteo waited in the hall, keeping watch. The familiar scent of vanilla candles greeted her, poignant after sterile air. She packed quickly, jeans, scrubs, sneakers, her grandmother's quilt. The envelope from Dante still lay in the freezer. She left it. It felt like a talisman she no longer needed. Her phone buzzed. Sophie. Elena hesitated, then answered. Where are you? Sophie demanded. You vanished again. I'm taking leave, Elena said, choosing each word as if stepping over glass. Family matters. Your mom called me. She said she hasn't seen you in 2 days. Guilt tightened Elena's chest. She glanced at Mateo's silhouette in the doorway, as unmoving as a statue. I'm fine, Soph. I'll explain when I can. This isn't about that shooting, is it? Police came by asking questions. Elena's pulse lurched. Tell them I'll call. She swallowed. And please, don't dig. It's safer. Sophie went silent. Then softer. Ellie, whatever's happening, call me if you need me. I will, promise. The lie tasted bitter. She ended the call. As she zipped her duffel, Mateo spoke from the doorway. We can have your friend guarded too. She won't accept it. Elena lifted the bag. And she shouldn't have to. She will if the alternative is a bullet. Anger flashed. Is that how you see us? Collateral waiting for protection? Mateo's gaze didn't waver. I see targets. It's my job to minimize surface area. She pushed past him, descending the stairwell 2 steps at a time. The hallway smelled of curry and laundry detergent, comforting and heartbreaking. Outside, the street glared with noon sun. A battered blue pickup idled at the curb. She recognized it, Mr. Patel from downstairs. Normal life. She couldn't wave, couldn't risk dragging him into crosshairs. She slid into the sedan, shutting the door on the temptation. Halfway back, traffic snarled near construction cones. Horns bleated. Mateo stiffened, scanning mirrors. Ahead, a black van nudged between lanes, windows masked with sunshades. Elena's breath hitched. Problem? She whispered. Maybe. Mateo's voice tightened. He angled the sedan onto a side road lined with closed warehouses. The van followed, tires crunching gravel. Mateo cursed under his breath. Elena clutched her bag. Is it them? Most likely. He accelerated, but the street dead-ended at a chain-link gate. The van braked behind them, blocking escape. 2 men jumped out, guns drawn. Mateo yanked a pistol from the console and shoved it into Elena's hands. If they reach the door, shoot through the glass, don't hesitate. She stared at the weapon, adrenaline spiking. I'm not... Finger on the trigger, safety's off, he snapped, climbing out his side. Aim center mass. Terror knotted her throat. She watched through the windshield as Mateo advanced, weapon up. The attackers fired first, muzzles flaring. Mateo ducked behind a cement barrier, returning shots precise and controlled. One assailant crumpled. The other dove behind the van. Sirens wailed in the distance, police or Dante's men, she couldn't tell. The remaining gunman sprinted toward the sedan, eyes wild. Mateo fired. The man staggered but kept coming, raising his weapon. Elena's pulse roared. She remembered Luca bleeding, remembered Dante's promise. She lifted the pistol, hands shaking, sighted the gunman's chest through glass. Her finger tightened. A final crack split the air. The gunman's body jerked and folded to the pavement. Mateo stalked forward, gun still trained, checked his pulse, then waved an all clear. Elena's breath left in a violent rush. The pistol slipped from her grasp to the floor mat. Mateo returned, blood spatter on his sleeve. He opened her door gently. You okay? She couldn't speak. He retrieved the pistol, engaged the safety, stowed it. I'm sorry, he said, voice rough with something close to sympathy. I hoped you wouldn't have to see that. She pressed shaking palms to her eyes. Tears leaked between fingers. Shock, relief, horror tangled. He waited in respectful silence until sirens neared, distant but closing. Dante will have questions, Mateo murmured, but first let's get you out of sight. Back at the tower, Dante met them in the private garage, fury banked behind icy calm. His gaze raked over Elena first, assessing for wounds, then shifted to the bullet gouges in the sedan. Matteo delivered a clipped report. Elena watched Dante's jaw steel with each detail. When Matteo finished, Dante turned to her. "Were you harmed?" She shook her head, voice stuck behind the tremor in her lungs. Dante reached out, brushed a thumb across her cheek where tears had dried. The intimacy of the gesture under harsh fluorescent light left her dizzy. "Take her upstairs," he told Matteo. "I'll handle cleanup." Matteo guided her into the elevator. They rode in silence. Inside the loft, Matteo led her to a guest bathroom and handed her a small bottle of whiskey. "For shock," he said, then left. She stared at her reflection. Dilated pupils, pallid skin. The smell of gunpowder still clung to her clothes. She took a swallow that burned all the way down, bracing herself on the sink. When she emerged, Dante waited in the living room. Coat shed, sleeves rolled. A medic kit lay open on the table, though she'd taken no harm. He seemed relieved to confirm that, then motioned for her to sit. She did, arms wrapped around her torso. "I underestimated Gianni again," he said quietly. "That's on me." Her laugh broke, brittle. "They tried to kill me in daylight. Any more underestimation and I'm funeral flowers." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "I promise safety today proves I must tighten the circle." "By what? Locking me underground?" "If that's what it takes." He knelt beside her chair, hands resting on his thighs in a posture of self-restraint. "I saw footage. Matteo said you nearly fired." "I froze until the last second." She stared at her trembling hands. "If he'd reached the door, I don't know if I could have pulled the trigger." He covered her hands with his, warmth steady. "You shouldn't have to know. I put you in that position." She met his gaze. "Your world put me there, and I stepped into it when I chose to save Luca. I get that now." Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes, gratitude forged from pain. He squeezed her hands. "Let me fix what I can." "You can't clean gunfire out of my memory." "No." His voice roughened. "But I can make sure nothing echoes it." She closed her eyes, leaning into the contact despite herself. For a heartbeat, she let the safety he represented eclipse the danger he carried. When she opened her eyes, his face was inches away, breath warm. The moment stretched, thin as the space between lightning and thunder.